including all the the slides, like the integration for students and activities and stuff. So that's where I come from in this context. So very excited to like host this panel. Without further ado, like I'm gonna pass this mic around, and you guys can present yourselves too.
Sure, sure. Been a minute since I've spoken to a mic, but yeah, so I'm Connor Davis. I'm a founding engineer on the Union team currently, and I was part of the first cohort in Cambridge. I'm just really excited about this panel to see how the academy's come along since I've been part of it, and excited to see where it's going.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dakota Barnett. I'm one of the co-founders of the InvArch Network, a parachain on Polkadot, and as well as a lecturer on the founders track of the PPA.
Hello, I'm Gabriel. I'm also co-founder of the InvArch Network, and I'm also a guest lecturer, but on the engineers track.
Sacha gave me a great intro. I'm Nuke, and I was involved with the PBA until very recently with the first 3 waves and helping primarily with faculty and content management.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks everyone for presenting yourself. Maybe you can keep the mic for a second there, because I guess we want to first understand, like, so what really is this? What is the academy? Like, how did we want to design it from the beginning? And I think then you're a good person to first touch on that. Yeah, why don't you kick us off with that?
Yeah, so I came in after the decision was made, I think, Gavin, maybe about 3-4 years ago, towards the beginning or end of 22, I think it was, decided it'd be a really good idea to have this academic program that was explicitly not a boot camp. We didn't want to call it a boot camp, to really give you foundationally what you needed to succeed as not just a smart contract, script kiddie kind of equivalent thing, but somebody who really understood the architecture of blockchains and consensus design and tokenomics and these things, right, at a deeper level. So the conception there was then these core concepts from the ground up to make sure that you're not going to miss anything. So cryptography was important, economics was important, blockchain fundamentals, how these things work, and all the way out through the substrate stack, now the Polkadot SDK stack. So that idea, I think, was really manifested, as you said, so fast. We had very little time to get to Cambridge, and I don't know, maybe we'll have to get a little bit of feedback. It seemed to be pretty valuable, even in the edition 1, and ever since then, I think it's continued to evolve and polish and expand in terms of its scope. So this idea originally was blockchain engineering focused, like that was it. But then we've also evolved into a more founders track. So a holistic, like, how do we use this product for actually productive purposes more than just understand it academically? So it is becoming its own little university in a sense, which is cool to see.
So one of the most important things about the academy, I think, in terms of how it was put together and how it's now continuing, is the in-person element. And actually being in person around students for a 5-week period of time and working on assignments together and stuff. Gabe, like, as someone who's like actually been an instructor, how can you comment, what would be your comment on how important that is and how it manifests itself to like this being a program that's unique in that way?
So specifically in the engineers track, which is where I lecture, it is extremely hard to get points across over the internet. It's so easy to collaborate, but it's so hard to actually put thoughts together, and just the ability to point things on a screen and to go over things next to someone else makes that learning experience so much better, and actually makes it possible to do this whole course in the amount of time it is. Otherwise, we would be there for a couple of years trying to teach these students. But in this 1 month and a week, we have with the students, we can see them going from some of them no knowledge about blockchains to being able to build blockchains from scratch without even using the primitives we give them with in Substrate, but actually being able to take the core cryptographic primitives and build something with them.
Yeah, which is not a small feat. Like, there's a lot to learn, and these things could be provided on some sort of like online course, but in order to really get really deep, you like the immersive experience of like doing that for 24 hours a day. Literally, some students are like working. I mean, it's really intense, right? So actually, I want to then give the mic now to Connor. Like, as a student, like, how was your experience there? Like, it's a very highly intensive program. How was your experience? How was the in-person element, and in general, the workload?
Sure. So honestly, it was a bit surreal at first, being surrounded by so many people who say, like, you've been contributing around the parachain space, contributing to the SDK. You see these big names, these influential names like that we've gotten to work with, and Basky, Sean, and others, and it was kind of insane to be able to be like, "Hey, I'm next to you. I can ask you a question if I was confused about something or wanted more information." And they were so happy to share that information with you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not something you get to see organically online very often. So having that space to do that was great. In terms of workload, the academy, sure, it's hard work. We worked very hard throughout the day. Took our breaks as we needed them, but got right back to work. And at the end of the day, we always had fun as well. That was a huge part of it, is that we socialized, had fun, and I still have connections for this day that I am very glad that I was able to form.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And then there we are talking about the academic part and like the different tracks right now, but there's a lot of fun activities after classes. Like I remember in Cambridge what we went punting. We took a boat out or whatever. What did you guys do actually? Like, Gabe, can you share? First of all, like remind us. Like, so you were recently in the what was the last cohort?
Hong Kong?
In the Hong Kong
Yeah.
cohort. Yeah. Cool. So that's the fourth cohort or the third?
Yeah,
Is it
so
the
that was that was the
fourth?
fourth. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I was there for the founders track. It was the second iteration, so to speak. So it was during the third wave in Berkeley when they actually first kicked it off, and it was incredible to see what the transformation from that first iteration, where you probably know, like there's some guinea pig aspects to things, you know what I mean? Like getting everything, like getting all the everything in place and seeing what works and what doesn't, and then coming back 6 months later to Hong Kong and seeing it, and just how, like Nuke said, like there's like this university kind of that's being formed where you had this extremely immersive, not just developers track, but founders track, and seeing these founders go with their ideas, working, collaborating with students, working with instructors, kind of molding their ideas, getting advice, and going from zero to hero. And the next thing you know, they're giving some pretty impressive and solid pitches in front of tier one VCs, and they're crushing it. And it's just it's really incredible to see like the evolution. But of course, through all the hard work, yeah, you can go out, have fun.
Yeah.
Karaoke is karaoke
Very-
and trivia night.
Yeah.
Or it might sound a bit corny, but no, they're incredible. It's so much fun going out, and I think I sang my heart out when we went out for karaoke in Berkeley, and then I don't know. That's like the cool thing is you make a lot of friends through this process too. Like even as a lecturer, like you meet these students, and it's people that I am confident I'll know for the rest of my life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The connections you make is huge. I think Connor commented on that too. I personally am part of the alumni Discord channel now, which is how I got to be in touch with Connor. Still in touch with Nuke. But I think that's an awesome part of it for sure too, right? And it's not just the connections like, oh, I'm part of an alumni network, I'm adding people to my LinkedIn. It's people that literally, like, if you have a problem on a specific thing, they've become experts themselves on whatever that topic, and you can reach out to them, which is like I think a really cool part of the alumni network. We're talking about the tracks. And before we move on to like the founders track, which I really want to talk about today, and which is awesome to have you around because you were actually a lecturer for the founders track, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
But before we go there, just on the developers track, I think I just want to touch on how we really designed this program to attract Web 2 developers to get into Web 3. Did you feel that way when you were a student there? Like, and can you comment on that approach and maybe comment on the other students that were around you, like as Web 2 developers in that journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had been working in the parachain space for maybe 2-3 months at that time. I like started as an intern at this parachain and was struggling to put the pieces together. I had like some Rust background and tons of professional engineering background in Web 2. And going to the academy, getting that opportunity was huge for me, and it was huge for others there. Many of those people that I met at the academy had either some to little blockchain experience, and a few had incredible amounts of it, which those were incredibly interesting to talk to and meet as well. But for those who didn't come with that experience, this academy was still designed for them. It felt like they, from the start of the academy to the end of the academy, had gained enough knowledge to immediately start contributing to the Polkadot community. And that was very awesome to see. And even for myself, those barriers that I kind of felt before for like contributing to the SDK or commenting on discussions, I felt a lot more comfortable and not only my knowledge, but my just connections with the Polkadot network and being able to do and contribute. And that was huge.
Yeah. No, awesome. No, thanks for sharing. And Nuke, I would like you to maybe comment on how things have evolved, like on the developers track. Specifically, I mean, I remember when we did the first cohort, we really cared about giving students at the end of each module a hands-on experience, so some sort of hands-on workshop. And we did, I think we kicked off the consensus module with Joshy's block production, where you write on a whiteboard. Yeah, the blocks. I think they still do that, right?
Yeah. So you're right. We did a lot of hands-on stuff, and that was part of my duty, was to like really grind that we need to make great interactive, like learn by doing stuff happen. And I would say yes, Joshy, if you're watching, that definitely triumphs in that sense.
Yeah.
Like, he's a great teacher, and especially practical, fun, gamified stuff. So yeah, like there's a Grandpa the Board game I think you can see online if you'd like to go and check it out on the PBA GitHub. But all kinds of interactive elements. One thing we didn't have at Cambridge that we did bring on is actually graded assignments along the way, because we admittedly had so little time to come together with like assignments that we felt okay to give to students, that we had a final exam to make sure that it was a rigorous program that is intentionally hard to pass. But we had a little bit more leeway between the next waves, where we were able to increasingly refine the graded material. So to really challenge people to like, yeah, we've taught you these concepts, but can you like really prove to us that you have the competency that we hope that you have? And so I think it was good, and seeing that evolve was progressively getting more refined over time. We learned along the way, and I think students are getting more and more out of it. Honestly, yeah, I think it's good.
Cool. Yeah. What was your favorite workshop hands-on assignment?
Oh man, that's a hard one. I think honestly, if I had to pin one, there's the frameless assignment.
Yeah.
Here it gives you a very low level understanding of how Substrate or the Polkadot SDK is fundamentally constructed. Because Frame is this common framework to build parachains with, and but here you get to see basically the equivalent would be the assembly level instructions. Well, it's the API for the machine that you're operating in. So it really helps refine your understanding what blockchains are and what you're actually doing, as opposed to just trying to write some logic to get a particular task done. So I think that one's a real special one. And honestly, I'm a bit of a geek for crypto. So the first assignment around cryptography in general, just very basic stuff, it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy that myself.
Awesome. Yeah, a lot has evolved, I think, and from the but still with the same values, right? Creating a high intensive academic grade curriculum and delivering it with hands-on workshops and stuff, and being taught by experts in those fields. I think that was great.
And I might also mention we had some people come in and bring some amazing, top tier talent, bleeding edge research to actually play with assignments, right? I believe at Berkeley, you were giving some assignments to students to try out some of this brand new stuff in XCM, because this was the first time people were using it in production, right? So
I'm so glad that you're mentioning this. Yeah. So Gabe, can you comment on that? Like, so this was in the fourth quarter.
The third and the fourth.
The third and the fourth. So just remind us. So the third one was which city? Berkeley.
Berkeley.
And okay.
And the fourth, Hong Kong.
And then Hong Kong, right? So okay. So Gabe was there teaching what exactly?
So I gave a lecture on XCM use cases beyond the basic asset bridging, which is what we mostly do already in between parachains to bridge assets from one to another. And my lecture went over things you can do with XCM that go beyond that point, and not just your traditional uses of XCM, but also some outside of the box thinking. So first, I mentioned something we are building at InvArch, which uses XCM to actually abstract away accounts for multisigs, so those can transact in every single chain without having to put that logic on those different chains. But then I also, one particular thing that I love, that I love to mention to the students, is that XCM doesn't have to be used as a cross-chain messaging language necessarily. It can be used as this common language that every single substrate chain understands. So you can use it to abstract away all the custom APIs that these different chains have, and you can say build a UI that does everything in all those chains without having to write custom code. And you can add new chains as they get launched, because XCM has these instructions that exist to do things that are common in every single protocol, like things like trading assets or transferring between one or another and things like that. And you can build UIs using this common language that interact with all those chains without having to integrate them manually. And that is one of the aspects I mentioned, giving a use case of building a common NFT marketplace that uses this common language to allow trading of NFTs in all these chains, regardless of what standard of NFT they use. You could do that mapping on chain for contracts, for pallets, and
not a lot of teams are using
Yeah.
XCM in this way, right?
yeah, it's very.
And why
it's very
do you
rare.
think that's the case?
XCM is a very, very new technology.
Yeah.
That hasn't seen its use cases expanded yet, and it's I guess most
So
teams haven't.
just for those that might not know what XCM is,
sorry.
it's a cross consensus message format. It's a
Yes.
messaging format to
Yes.
send messages between
Yeah.
different
But it's
sovereign
in,
chains.
it's in its root. It's a language. It's a
Right.
common way to interact with these chains and allow these chains to interact with one another. And the reason why we haven't seen much of like more complex protocols using XCM is because most of these projects haven't been built with this resource available to them from the get-go. They have been building, and then this resource has become available and more refined. But now I expect that we were going to see more and more and more projects building with more complicated cross-chain messaging protocols that allow these different protocols to function properly.
And what I want to highlight here is, like, Gabe, you're somebody who's really been going deep into the world of XCM to a level at which your understanding is much deeper than the average person even writing XCM code in the Polkadot ecosystem. And how fortunate are students to have you teach this at the PBA, right? That's a really cool part about this whole program, where
Thank you.
I think we are so lucky to have you being teaching these things. I would like to do.
I'm glad to be able to teach these students because
Yeah.
I was once in their place, having no resources to research this and having to go around and figure it out, try to make this work. And I'm glad to be able to give them proper guidance on how to use this.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think we're going to see more and more experts in these different fields that are going to be teaching at this program.
Yes.
And
I hope the PBA itself makes these experts and brings them back to the PBA to teach new students.
Yeah. In Cambridge, we had the experts in the core technology, I guess. What Gav was there teaching cryptography. We had a whole bunch of people from the Web3 Foundation who I think are still teaching there. Yeah, who from the Web3 Foundation and what areas? Remind me, Nuke.
Yeah, we had some of the researchers specifically around the economics section, which was where they really made an impact. And some of the, again, top tier bleeding edge research.
Yeah.
For example, in Berkeley, actually, it's Jonas from Web3 was just releasing basically a proposal to change the tokenomics a little bit on Polkadot and was discussing this, right, in class. It was part of the lecture, right? I believe after hours lecture. So, this research university style thing where you really do have innovations happening as part of what the program is definitely something we saw throughout, and that's the most exciting thing to me, that's for sure.
And students building projects like while they're at the academy and launching them. I mean, I remember in the Berkeley one, Nicholas had launched Polkadot Study, which was this idea of just bringing together resources and having a grant to fund tutorials about Substrate and stuff. And I'm seeing more and more projects coming out of PBA or students from the PBA, which is awesome. This is a good maybe segue into like the founders track, to me at least, right? Because I think that one of the goals of this program is to really teach blockchain engineering from the ground up. And we want to see more and more projects that are really have a deep understanding of the products that they want to be building by virtue of knowing the tech stack very well. But that's not all of it, right? There's a lot missing to be able to like go to market with an idea and to know how to navigate like bringing a product or your app chain to market, or right. And so I think one of the cool things that has happened over the last little while at the PBA is that they're introducing this founders track. Is it correct that it was just Hong Kong was the first one?
The first one was in.
So yeah, so introduce us what the founders track is and why does the PBA have that?
Yeah, so the first founders track actually started off in Berkeley. We preserved that, and that was kind of just to bridge the gap between, I guess, there's a lot of brilliant people in the world, a lot of great ideas, but usually it helps when there's like your Steve Jobs, your Steve Wozniak, you have this nice balance. And so it's like the PBA was expanding to help also like empower founders, because there's a lot of developers out there that we want to get in and involved in the ecosystem, and many of them, some of them have ideas of their own and projects they want to start. Some of them are actually very keen and interested on contributing and becoming, parts of other projects in the ecosystem. And so this pathway was really to empower those who had ideas, bold ideas of their own that they, really wanted to turn into a real thing. And not just the, developers who are technically inclined, but also just, more of the, or less of the CTO type, I'll put it that way, like more of the CEO like type of mindset where they might not be as technically inclined, but they have a very solid and pragmatic and passionate interest in using Web3 technologies for their product. And so it started out in Berkeley, and this was, like that first iteration where it mostly focused on just giving, beginning insights into when you start to go fundraise. You have to, get your first deck together. So giving students a lot of advice there, bringing in a lot of top tier VCs to directly come in and give advice to those students, which was great. Giving them advice on what it's like to run and, to start and run a Web3 project or company, depending on what you're doing. Focusing on aspects such as like community building and the importance of community in Web3. Talking about DAOs, considerations of governance and what governance means in Web3 and those considerations when you're designing a network or a protocol. And so, focusing on all these things, but then, which was great. But then you fast forward to Hong Kong, it was amazing to see how much the program had grown. There was a small handful, I want to say maybe 15-ish, maybe up to 20, but about 15 students on the founders track the first time around, where the second time in Hong Kong, I don't know the exact numbers, but it felt like there was anywhere between 30 and 40.
Wow,
And
cool.
it was incredible too, just to see them go from these ideas. Some of them were very refined already.
So yeah, let me talk a little bit about that. What kind of projects or what kind of students are coming in? Do they already have an idea? They have a project already?
Yeah.
Are they coming completely new? Are they engineers maybe that want to have more of a business mindset?
I mean, to be fair, you actually kind of see it from all ranges. It's very welcoming for anybody. Like some people just know, and this might sound very abstract, and it is, and that's okay. They just know that they want to get in and they want to do something. They want to start a project. But then you have people where they know exactly what they want to build. They might have actually already started building it. They might already be founders out there making their journey, but they want to come to the PBA because, there's no such thing as you don't stop learning. And they want to come in and they want to get this this education, this advice, and be the best they can be. But you see, projects or you see individuals coming in trying to build a plethora of different ideas, which I love, from DeFi applications. DID was actually very, very popular at this wave. A lot of students looking to build things with DID, identity solutions. A lot of students focusing on data ownership, because there's been changes to the laws with data and privacy rights that give the ownership to the individual. So they're creating solutions that help facilitate this ownership and talking about marketplaces. So many different things. People, creating these serverless clouds using Substrate. It's it's really all over. I think the first people, also AI was a particularly strong theme, and even now, at the current one, AI came up. Individuals making tooling for developers using AI. So it really is all over the
All
place,
over
the
the
type
place.
of ideas, and it's awesome because even though these ideas range, just so they're so diverse across the board, the PBA still provides them with quality and expert education for all of them. You know what I mean? And they still, nonetheless, no matter what you're building, they still somehow manage to to connect you with people, with the right people who can help you specific, to your niche or to what it is that you're doing. And really not just give like this generalized expert advice, but one-on-one mentorship as well. And like I said, connections that, I hope that those students keep, for a long
And
time.
and so with the developers track, you have a lot of students like Connor like coming in and already maybe being involved in some parachain stuff, and a lot of the students in the developer track maybe will just continue to work for a parachain team, or just maybe get hired by companies like Parity or something. But for the founders track, and by the way, is that kind of correct? Like you haven't joined the developers track. At the time there was only one track, but like what your experience after was, you just became a much better expert in parachain runtime development. And I get, but in your case, you were already working on something, so it didn't really, you didn't get hired or anything, or what happened to you after?
Sure. So at the time, I was working with Composable Finance, one of the parachains who I believe is still functioning
True.
there.
I forgot.
I don't work with them anymore, but they sent me to the academy very generously, and I absolutely benefited from the knowledge I gained at the academy. While I was there before, again, I'd been there maybe 2-3 months, and starting to contribute, starting to move out of that like junior developer role. When I came back from the academy, I started contributing at a much higher role, and in fact, just leading products and development at Composable Finance for our what was it, the crowd-loaned distribution palette and a few other palettes, and palette development became something I was very comfortable with doing, and something that was I felt like I had a lot of impact in, which was very awesome.
Awesome. So you continued working with Composable Finance after the academy,
Yeah. For some time, I worked with them for I guess almost a year after the academy.
right?
Eventually, me and some of the other engineers decided to part ways with Composable Finance and start our own
Do your own
project,
thing.
Union. And while we're not currently in the Polkadot space, we are still Polkadot engineers at heart. Polkadot's great. We love it.
Yeah,
For
I
many
was
reasons.
speaking with your co-founder, and he was just telling me how he's excited to get back into the Polkadot world.
Absolutely.
But that's awesome. I mean, and for developers, there's, you know, there's a lot of options, right, to get hired. But I'm curious about founders. Like, what's next for them once they've completed the founders track? Maybe you can comment on that, Dakota. And what kind of support maybe does the program offer?
And that actually is, I think, a rather fascinating thing that I haven't realized is the reality of after the founders track. I mean, I guess like what comes next is just hoping that your idea and everything that you work towards, just that things work out. Don't know, you get a lot of amazing knowledge, like particularly around marketing and community building, which would be very valuable in any role, any project around the industry. But when it comes to these founders, I mean, it's just what it is. This is one of the things that come with being a founder is you have this idea that you are passionate about.
Mhm.
A little delusion goes a good long way, and you just chase that. You have a vision and you chase it relentlessly. And so founders that come into the PBA on this track, we help to educate them, to empower them, to give them connections with other founders, with investors, also resources for things such as hiring when then they start to grow their team. So we give them all of these resources and we set them on a strong track. But ultimately, what happens after that, as with any founder, that story is entirely up to them.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I think that, but in the same way that we're lucky to have experts like Gabe teaching XCM, we're really lucky to have people like you on the founders track who have been cutting their teeth, launching their own parachain and finding product market fit and all the other things that now you're in a position where you can just, uh, offer your knowledge and wisdom to these teams, which is awesome.
Kind of
Yeah.
give back. So the first time around in Berkeley, I just gave one lecture, and it was on I called it the 3 C's. So capital, community, and consistency,
Mhm.
or community, capital, consistency is in that order. Community always comes first. And so I would really the focus of it was to give founders advice, all the things that I know now. If you ask me now, I think I have a lot of opinions on a lot of things all the time. I've learned a lot over the past 2 years. But damn, my life would have been a lot easier if I knew all these things 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I want to share those things with the students, and ideally, make their lives a bit easier. And so I focused on my first lecture there. But coming back, got to have a much heavier involvement in the PBA, and so I gave that classical lecture as well, and really drove it home with reminding founders just to no matter how good things get, especially the better they get, stay hungry, stay starving. Don't stop chasing that. But in addition to that, then I focused on DAOs, and educating the students on DAOs and really going deep down the rabbit hole, like not the basic. Here's a DAO and the tokens and you vote. They got that lecture during the academy as well, which is important. But I followed up by really kind of talking about more complex and unexplored DAO structures that can be achieved, whether it's with tokens, NFTs, tokenless CID DAOs, all the different elaborate models of sub DAOs and treasury management, blah, 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 all this stuff. And I talked to them about that, which is really cool because I nerd out about these things. So when I get to lecture, or share this passion is really what I'm doing. I'm just sharing my passion, and through teaching. But when I get to share this with the students and then they reciprocate that back and they're excited.
Yeah.
It's really cool to then see DAOs are cool.
Yeah, I think we probably all felt that way in some shape or form while we were at the academy. And I certainly felt that, you're teaching substrates for the first time to somebody and they're like, wow, I can really just launch an app chain like this and it's working, and you get you go through a palette and they're like, whoa. And that's also such a beautiful part of it. Thank you so much for coming here and taking the time. Is there any questions from you guys about the academy, about the founders track and the developers track? Well, with that, I'll say that we're lucky to prove that this alumni network is a real thing, right? We're all in Denver today, and we wouldn't have been together if it wasn't for this thing that we share. So with that, again, thank you so much, and I hope this was an informative session for people learning about PBA.
Thank you for having us.